Jima memorial. Nothing may be more different from our civilization, the civilization of the ancient Americans, than our respective attitudes towards killing. As you know, in our day, the killing of anyone is virtually unheard of. Why kill someone who has the capacity to work? It is, of course, sometimes necessary to control people who are destructive, but it's been thousands of years since anyone has sanctioned murder. Things were very different back in ancient America. Back then, whole peoples would engage in the systematic slaughter of each other, and this slaughter was accepted, and in many cases glorified. It was a sort of macabre ritual of death. They called this ritual war. What would generally happen was this: thousands of strangers would line up along a line somewhere, and then the people on each side would do everything they could to kill everyone on the opposite side and save everyone on their side. Now you might ask yourself, well, what would determine which side of the line a person fought on? And the answer is that the side you fought on was generally based on where you lived. So for example, if you had a relative who lived on the opposite side of what was called a border from you, it is theoretically possible that you might end up trying to kill your own relative. But then you might ask, what if somebody didn't want to participate? And this is where it gets interesting, because often you had no choice in the matter. There would be negative sanctions if you refused to participate. You might, for example, be ridiculed and called a coward, or even be put in a cage for a long period of time if you refused to fight in the war. Now your next thought might be, well then obviously everyone would choose the cage, because living in a cage for a while is far, far better than killing someone who has done nothing to you. And you would think that, but strangely enough, few people chose that option. Times were different then, and people thought differently. These were barbarians after all. As a general rule, they did not follow the dictates of their own logic, but instead surrendered their reason and let others think for them. Statues like the one here were built by politicians who had an interest in continuing to perpetuate the idea that war could be good. Look at this statue. It shows a few of what were called soldiers as they climbed to the top of a mountain after participating in the slaughter of thousands and risking their own deaths. When they reached the top of the mountain, which incidentally was located on a worthless island on the other side of the globe, they proudly planted a flag to declare their, quote, victory. This flag was sort of like a brand that represented the politicians who had forced them to go fight. So these fools, by planting this flag, were actually glorifying the same cowardly men in Washington who had refused to go and fight their own battle for themselves. This was a very different time. So if you want it, we can take a couple minutes to go see the statue. See you next.